Welcome to this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us Oran Kivity, a British author, acupuncturist, and independent publisher with a passion for forgotten stories and untold histories. And he has been trained in East Indian Asian medicine. He has written 6 books himself on acupuncture and moxibustion and runs Sayoshi Books, an imprint focused on Japanese and Chinese medicine. And he has recently pre-published Daughter of the Waves, a vivid memoir by his mother, pioneering journalist and biographer Ruth Jordan. And set in pre-war Palestine, the book blends personal memory with historical insight. Let's dive into the story behind the story. Welcome to the show, Oran.
Thank you very much, AJ. It's lovely to see you again, and good to
You
be
are
back here.
you are welcome. Welcome once again to the show. This time on the author's voice with KJ, and this time we'll be talking about your mother's book, which you have republished. And it's very much relevant, especially in what's going on in that part of the world. So we'll talk about that. Let's understand. But before that, let's understand a bit why republish it? Why at this point in time? I know the answer, but I want you to in your words and also for the audience.
Okay, so my mum died 30 years ago. Her book was published just over 40 years ago. And during the pandemic, my dad, who was very elderly, was kind of on his own or with my stepmom, and who has dementia. And my sister was in a different town in London, and I wanted something to bring us together as a family, like a project that could unite us across different continents. Because I live in Taiwan, my sister's in UK, my dad's in Israel. So uh, yeah, so I wanted to have a project that could bring us together and bring our skills. So my dad, of course, had many memories of my mum, and my sister is very good with language and editing and PR marketing. So we thought, well, let's just do it on the 40th anniversary. But families being what they are, the thing didn't get done until last year. So actually 42 years after it was first published. And I think the new book has been edited, and we've got lots of new photographs about it. Uh, put in there that we found, and I think the new book is beautifully designed and tells the story, and the story is even more relevant today because when you introduced us, you said it's set in pre-war, before the war, and people, your listeners, will be going, well, which war are you talking about? So I think that I should say it's the Second World War. It happens in the events before the Second World War. I'll say one more piece of context about it, because not all your readers will know this, and all your viewers, is that Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire, and it was ruled by the Turks and the Ottoman Empire until 1917, when it fell and the Ottoman Empire collapsed in the First World War. And after that, the British were allocated what was called a mandate to govern different areas of the Middle East, including Jordan and Palestine, which were at that point one country. Transjordan and Palestine were all one mandate, or one country. The French also had a mandate to govern in Lebanon, and so there were different mandates from the League of Nations, what was then the United Nations, or the equivalent of the United Nations. And so my mum was born in British Mandate Palestine, and she grew up there, and she saw herself as a Palestinian, and she wrote about her childhood up until the end of the Second World War in this beautiful memoir. And it talks about her childhood, and she intersperses these childhood anecdotes, things that she saw, things that she did, things that happened in school, with the greater events of the time, which were this influx of refugee Jews from Europe, and the beginnings of what would become Israeli culture, and the beginnings of like orchestras, operas, art, radios, roads, trains, ships, beaches being converted into harbors. So all of these things are part of her narrative and very interesting to see.
Absolutely. So, what is it that you want the world to know through this book? Is it about humans? Is it about that part of the world? Is it about your accomplished mom? Help us understand what is it that you had in mind.
I think we we wanted this book to be republished because it tells a story of the origins. It's an origin story. It tells the story of a very seemingly innocent time when people were coming into British Mandate Palestine and starting to form communities and with the dream of a homeland. And it's a very it's told in a very innocent way, I think, because it's seen through the eyes of a child, and it talks about the kind of evolution of language and kind of the history or the backdrop. It's like an Israel origin story, because lots of people think that, you know, Israel started to exist and, maybe just really came to the forefront of the world in this recent war. But this tells a story of a different Israel that people don't know about, and a Palestine that people don't know about. So I think it's really good for people to understand this. And, our dream was to launch it long before October the 7th and the latest war. So this latest war makes it even more relevant today than it was when it was published 40 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what way have you updated this version? What is that was not there in the earlier book, and now it is there in the new
Mm.
version?
There are a couple of things that we did. We decided to edit the language because her previous editor on this first edition didn't believe in the use of commas. So the sentences were very long and sometimes a little bit hard to read because there were no commas. So we punctuated the book. So we populated it with commas and full stops. And we changed some of the names of the towns and the spellings of things just so they were more recognizable, because they were slightly archaic in that my mom had used. And then we tried to get the original photographs for the book because but some of those didn't exist anymore, or those charities where she had got them from no longer existed. So we couldn't get all of them, but we managed to get substitute photographs for some of the celebrities that she wants to talk about in the book, like Toscanini, the great classical conductor who came to conduct the Palestine Orchestra. And also we found a lot of pictures of my granddad, her dad, and my grandmom, her mum, and pictures of her on the beach and her dog. She also had a pet hyena, so yeah, that was in the first book, and we managed to just scan it and enhance it with AI so that her hyena can be seen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you worked on this book with your sister, if I understand. Tell us a bit about
That's
that,
right, yeah.
and also about your dad. Unfortunately, if I understand, he passed away just few days before this republished version comes.
Yeah, so my dad was very supportive of the project. He really wanted to see the book republished. And my sister is a remarkable woman because she's visually impaired. And so she has a huge computer screen, and she reads emails with letters this big. And she still found time to edit and go through things. And we talked a lot extensively about the newsletter that we put out. We started to get a mailing list and putting out newsletters. And so my sister was really amazing in terms of her input into the whole plan of the book. It wouldn't have been as good if I'd been doing it on my own. And finally, in my dad's last days, my sister and I were around him, and we were having little family editorial meetings with my dad in his bed, just kind of listening and then putting in his input and saying, "Oh yeah, I like this," and "Oh, well done, you too," and "Yes, I approve." And yeah, so it was really a family project. And as you said, he passed away at the age of 97, just a couple of months before we went to print. So he never got to hold the book in his hand. He never got to hold it or see it, but uh, to my great regret. But at least he was there at the end. He knew it was coming out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to understand, how do you feel? You yourself are an author of 6 books, and then you are putting your mom's book at the forefront at the moment, talking about it, telling the world about it, reintroducing it to the world, enhancing it. How do you feel that as a son? Is it is it you are repaying your mom, or is it also towards history itself?
I think it's both. I mean, it's really lovely to have this story out there. Her book at the time won an award in the US, and I feel like it could deserve more. And I was on a podcast where the host suggested to me that we make it into a script for a mini series because I think it's such a great story and it's told with such humor as well as attention to detail that it would make a great mini series on Netflix or Amazon. So we're thinking about trying to write some kind of treatment of the story and see what we can do with it. It's just, yeah, so bringing my mum doing it's many things. It's a collaboration with my sister. It keeps us in contact with each other all the time. It's a testimonial to my mom, and it's a challenge to me as a publisher to, with my learning new skills. We were thinking of doing an audio book, and yeah, so it's all kinds of things.
Absolutely. And talking of challenges, okay, what was the most challenging part of republishing this book, Oran?
I think designing the cover was challenging but fun. So if you can bring the cover up so that your viewers could see, I think the cover
Yeah,
is basically you'll see that there's a painting of my mom. This is her as a young girl, and we have this oil painting at home, which my mom left to us when she passed. And then behind it, there's a map of Palestine. So I went to so many different places trying to get a map of British Palestine and finally found this one. And I love the yellows of this map, which has got this kind of very rich yellow feel, which reminds me of the sand on the beach and the dust, because so much of Israel was desert at that time, or Palestine was desert at that time, or just kind of untilled and unarable. So yeah, I think making the cover was a challenge, but actually turned out very well. I think it's a beautiful cover and very striking. And I think that was
abs-
the main thing. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, Oran. Very, very, very well explained all the things. Now, I want to understand in terms of, any particular paragraph, anything that you like specifically for the audience to know. Not everyone will be able to read the book, but at least any paragraph that you think, anything that you think, if you read out for some time, they would at least get the gist of that.
Um, well, I'll read you out a funny part. Uh,
Okay.
Let me see. If you give me just a second,
Yes.
do you know what? I actually forgot that I was supposed to read something here. I think in the flood of yeah. All right. I will. She talks about something called the Levant Fair, and the Levant Fair was a huge expo that was arranged to bring trade and commerce into Palestine. And they had as their image a flying camel. And there's a story about the flying camel, which I'll read to you. There were two versions concerning the origin of the flying camel. According to one, the Jewish Board of Commerce and Industry, which had initiated the fair, had asked Tel Aviv's town architect to suggest an emblem that would symbolize its potential impact on the entire Middle East. When he came up with a sketch of a traditional caravan led by a rider on a donkey, the board members turned up their noses. Camels are not a bad idea for a Levant fair, but these camels won't do. They look lethargic. The architect produced another sketch showing camels at a slightly more animated trot. No, it isn't quite right. The architect produced a sketch of a single camel at full gallop. No, it's still not quite right. What the hell do you want then? The architect angrily snatched his sketches off the drawing board. A flying camel? That's a good idea. See what you can do. According to the second version, the symbol owed its derivation to a contemptuous remark made by the mayor of Jaffa. The board had invited him to organize a pavilion that would exhibit Palestinian-made products. It will give a boost to local Arab industry, they assured him. It's going to be the greatest trade fair ever held in the Levant. Not on your life it won't, the mayor scoffed. There will no more be a Levant fair in Tel Aviv than a camel will grow wings. Sure enough, the Levant fair did come into being, and the camel did grow wings. Shall I stop there?
Wonderful, wonderful indeed, Oran. So, in a nutshell, I want to understand for the audience what key insights, what key message do you want the readers of this book to take away with them?
I want them to understand that Palestine was a melting pot where Jews cohabited with Arabs, mostly harmoniously. She does talk about some of the massacres that took place, but from a child's point of view, these things were 6 years or 9 years apart, so that's a really long time. So when she was born in 1921, there was a massacre. There was one in 1929, and there was the Arab Revolt in 1936, which lasted for 3 years and was put down by the British. So these events happen, but they're kind of very interspersed. Most of the time, she talks about very harmonious relationships. In fact, the opening story of the book, she's walking along with her dad and her brother, and there's this donkey with a carriage with this box behind it, and this Arab driver starts to talk, and he says, "Oh, look, the little girl's slowing you down," and he invites her to climb up on the box, which is a coffin. So she rides on this coffin into town whilst her brother and her father walk next to it. So her father spoke fluent Arabic, and he got on very well with his neighbors. In fact, he was a kind of collector of animals, and one day he was given a puppy who turned out to be a hyena. So this hyena became very famous in Palestine, and Arabs would come from miles around to because it was believed to have magical properties. So, for example, its excreta was supposed to be good for infertility. So he got infertile couples coming saying, "Look, can we collect some of the dung from your hyena?" So I think it was whilst there was strife and there was bloodshed, those incidents were quite far apart, and therefore she portrays a much more harmonious kind of country than the one that we think about when we read current news.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are an author of several books, so do you ever it occur to you looking at the portrayal of the times in your mother's book ever happening again in the future? How does it look like from the way where we are at the moment in history?
I think that everything is about narrative. So the narrative that we hear now is a very troubled one, where the Israelis are the bad guys and somehow the Palestinians are the good guys. And I think that we need to really look at history to tell us what really happened. And of course, everything is about narrative. So I think that if we can take some of the poison out of the discussion and the anger and look objectively at what happened, then there could be some kind of truth and reconciliation process as there was in South Africa. But until there's a willingness for people to face truths on both sides, then the conflict will continue. But I think a book like this really shows you how Jews lived in Palestine since forever. They didn't just come and colonize. Of course, many did come as refugees. And if history tells us anything, it's like that Jews are not safe anywhere in the world. They're not safe in Europe. They're not safe in America. They're not safe in other countries. The only place where they're really safe is when they protect themselves, and that they need a homeland. And even there, they're not safe.
There is so much to learn about history, about the past, about peace, and about humanity uh, from you about all these things. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to understand all this from you through this book and from your book. So, what is the best way for them to not get hold of you, to understand, to connect with you, to get hold of this book, and also to know about your books?
Okay, so my books are very different and they're very specialized. So unless you're a practitioner of acupuncture, then you're not really going to enjoy my books. So I think that's why I'm on a podcast with you talking about my mom's book, because my own books are very specialized. Now, in terms of getting hold of this book, you can look up Daughter of the Waves online and you can buy it on Amazon. You can order it through your bookshops. And those are the best ways for you to get hold of it. So just go to your bookshop and say, I want to buy Daughter of the Waves, or look it up on Amazon. And in terms of my books, I have written many, as you say, 6 books. The 6th one is currently in production, about acupuncture, and in particular Japanese acupuncture, which is my passion and my work. And it is really being an acupuncturist that led me into publishing work and has led me on this journey, which has ended up with my mom's book. I have all these self-publishing skills that I wanted to use, and to kind of go back to something very personal.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the Author's Voice with KJ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed for watching, and thank you, AJ, for hosting.